Well, new figures show Canadians continue to cut back on travel south of the border last month.
Yeah, Stats Canada.
This year, many are not coming to America, as I saw firsthand on a recent trip to Vermont, right near the Canadian border.
Last month saw 1/3 fewer Canadians visiting the U.S. by car compared to June of 2024, as Canada propels international tourism declines to an expected overall.
Over 3 million tourists just canceled their trips to the U.S. overnight. Airport terminals that were packed just weeks ago now sit eerily empty. JFK, Miami, LAX, ghost towns. So what happened? And why are 15 major airports across America facing the worst traffic collapse in modern travel history? Is it economic chaos, political fallout, or rising fear among international travelers? Flights are being grounded, hotels stand vacant, and tourism-dependent businesses are collapsing. This isn't just a slowdown, this is a crash, and the truth behind this mass cancellation wave is deeper and more alarming than anyone expected. Let's break it down. In just the last 60 days, over 3 million international tourists canceled their trips to the United States. That's a 26% drop compared to the same period last year. According to a 2025 report from the U.S. Travel Association, this is the most dramatic short-term collapse in inbound tourism since the post-9/11 era. And unlike previous downturns, this one came with almost no warning. The hardest hit sectors? Major U.S. cities that rely heavily on international foot traffic. New York City alone saw a $420 million revenue loss in tourism-related spending in June. Las Vegas reported over 1,300 unsold hotel blocks, and Orlando theme parks recorded their lowest summer ticket sales in over a decade. Where are the cancellations coming from? Mostly Europe and South America. Tourists from the UK, Germany, France, and Brazil made up over 40% of the canceled bookings. Canada, historically the top source of inbound visitors, saw a 15% decline in outbound travel to the US, a shocking figure for peak summer. Online travel agencies report massive refund waves and a sharp rise in rebookings to Japan, Portugal, Thailand, and Saudi Arabia. Some platforms are seeing a 34% swing away from the US, calling it a destination exodus. The airline sector is in free fall. Delta, United, and American Airlines each slashed international flights by 12 to 18%. Once crowded routes, New York to London, Louisiana to Tokyo, Miami to Sao Paulo, are now half empty. In some cases, wide-body aircraft are being swapped for smaller planes to reduce losses. Hotels aren't spared either. Chains like Marriott, Hyatt, and Hilton reported a combined $1.3 billion drop in projected summer revenue. Many luxury properties in San Francisco, Miami, and Chicago are now offering 60% discounts just to fill rooms. Local economies are in crisis. Tour guides, car rental shops, restaurants, and museums are reporting customer traffic at less than 40% of 2024 levels.
One Orlando cafe owner said, "We used to serve 400 tourists a day, now it's barely 70.
Most alarming of all, jobs. In just 1 month, over 27,000 tourism-related jobs were furloughed or cut. More cuts are expected unless tourism rebounds quickly, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. To see the true scale of this collapse, we need to go where the silence is loudest: America's empty airports. If you want to understand the scope of the tourism crash, just walk into one of America's top international airports, because right now, they're nearly empty. Let's start with JFK International Airport in New York. Terminal 4, normally bustling with tourists from Europe and Asia, is eerily quiet. Shops are closed, seats are empty, and food courts are seeing less than 20% of normal foot traffic.
One security officer said, "It feels like a snowstorm hit, but it's July."
In Los Angeles international arrivals have plummeted. Flights from Tokyo and Seoul were slashed in half. Some gates are unused for hours. One airline pulled out of an entire terminal wing. LAX has lost over 320,000 passengers since May. Miami International Airport, a hub for Latin American travel, has seen flight cancellations from Brazil, Argentina, and Colombia spike. Airport vendors there have reported a 60% revenue drop, and customs officers are working shorter shifts due to the passenger drought. Orlando International, normally filled with tourists headed to Disney and Universal, is a shadow of itself. Parking garages are half full. A major car rental company there has parked hundreds of unused vehicles, stacking them in distant lots. Even Seattle-Tacoma International, a growing Pacific hub, is facing turbulence. With outbound travel from China and inbound interest both down, gates are being consolidated, and local hotels are laying off staff. And it's not just big cities. Denver, Phoenix, San Diego, Houston, Boston, and Atlanta are all reporting double-digit drops in international traffic. Las Vegas McCarran Airport, one of the country's biggest tourist gateways, has emptied out so dramatically that TSA lanes have been closing early.
A slot machine technician there told reporters, "I've never seen it this quiet, not even during the pandemic."
All told, 15 airports across the U.S. are operating at less than 65% of their 2024 tourist volume. That's over 500,000 fewer international passengers every week, and it's forcing major changes. Airlines are canceling long-haul flights, airport shops and lounges are closing, city tourism boards are requesting federal emergency relief. The tourism infrastructure in the U.S. was built for crowds. Now it's echoing with silence. But what's behind this sudden collapse? What made millions of travelers change their minds all at once? So why did 3 million tourists suddenly cancel their trips to the U.S.? The answer isn't simple. It's a storm of economic pressure, shifting sentiment, and geopolitical chaos all hitting at once. Let's start with the global economy. In early 2025, inflation surged again across Europe and Latin America, sending flight and hotel prices through the roof. A round-trip ticket from London to New York now costs 25% more than it did just 6 months ago. Hotels in major cities like San Francisco and Boston raised rates to offset staff shortages, making trips to the U.S. unaffordable for many. Then there's the rise in geopolitical tension. Diplomatic spats with key countries like Brazil, France, and South Korea led to abrupt changes in travel advisories. In April 2025, Brazil issued a Level 3 travel caution for the U.S., warning citizens of safety concerns, policy instability, and unpredictable customs treatment. France followed with a toned-down alert that nonetheless led to massive media coverage. But economics and diplomacy weren't the only factors. The real accelerator? Social media panic. Several viral videos showed travelers being mistreated at U.S. airports, hours-long detentions, denied entries, and chaotic customs lines. One video from JFK, viewed 18 million times in a week, showed a family being turned away despite valid ESTAs. That triggered a wave of backlash, with influencers and travel vloggers urging followers to cancel the states and opt for friendlier destinations. Simultaneously, the U.S. reintroduced selective biometric rescreening for travelers from 10 countries due to security evaluations. The move was meant to be temporary, but it sparked backlash from those affected, many of whom were frequent business or leisure travelers. In short, the perception of the U.S. as a welcoming, easy-to-navigate destination took a major hit in just a few weeks. Then came the travel insurance fallout. In June 2025, 3 major international travel insurance providers raised their U.S. coverage premiums by 40%, citing increased travel unpredictability and cancellation risk. Suddenly, even those willing to take the risk couldn't afford to be protected. Altogether, it created a perfect storm. Tourists weren't just scared, they felt unwanted, overcharged, and exhausted by the uncertainty. And the reaction has been swift. Flights canceled, trips refunded, and alternative countries booked instead. But while tourists are staying away, tourism boards and airlines are going into full panic mode. Let's take a look at how the global travel industry is scrambling to respond. As the tourism crash unfolded, the global travel industry didn't stay silent, they panicked. Airlines, tourism boards, and even foreign governments have scrambled to address the fallout and contain the damage. First, the airlines. International carriers like British Airways, Lufthansa, and LATAM quickly restructured their summer routes, cutting back on U.S. destinations and reallocating flights to Asia, Africa, and South America. Qatar Airways redirected 3 of its daily U.S. flights to Bangkok and Seoul instead, citing higher demand and lower risk of disruption. Some even offered cash bonuses for travelers who agreed to switch destinations. Tourism boards across Europe and Latin America launched massive anti-cancellation campaigns, encouraging travelers to swap U.S. trips for other regions. Portugal's tourism ministry released a viral ad titled "Same Atlantic, Less Drama," targeting American-bound Europeans. Brazil offered discounted packages to domestic beaches with the tagline "Stay home, stay happy." But not everyone is giving up on America. U.S. city governments, especially those hit hardest, are rolling out emergency recovery plans. Visit Orlando launched a $25 million Come Back Stronger campaign in 6 languages, while New York City partnered with international influencers to promote a We're Still Open series across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Meanwhile, airports are slashing fees for carriers and vendors just to stay afloat. Miami International is offering 90-day rent suspensions for airport shops, and LAX is subsidizing baggage handlers to avoid layoffs. Behind the scenes, travel associations are lobbying hard for federal intervention. The American Society of Travel Advisors and the U.S. Travel Association are pushing Congress for a $2 billion tourism recovery package abroad. Embassies are holding emergency meetings with U.S. consulates, demanding clarity on customs policies and the tech side. Booking giants like Expedia and Booking.com have updated their U.S. travel alerts and refund policies. The industry's reaction has been unified in its urgency, but deeply fractured in strategy. Everyone wants to stop the bleeding, but no one agrees on the cure. The big question now is, will any of this work? With 3 million tourists gone and 15 airports half empty, the travel industry is asking the big question. Is this a short-term shock or a permanent shift in global tourism? Experts are divided. According to projections from the U.S. Department of Commerce, international tourism to the U.S. could remain down 18 to 25% through the end of 2025. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, issued a level red advisory for transatlantic and Latin American route recovery, estimating full normalization may not happen until mid-2026 or later. But others see opportunity in the crisis. Some tourism strategists argue that this is a chance for the U.S. to reinvent its international image. In response, a bipartisan group in Congress recently proposed the Welcome Back Act, a $1.5 billion initiative aimed at improving entry points. Meanwhile, travel trends are already shifting. Instead of the U.S., travelers are flocking to Japan, Spain, Mexico, and Thailand, countries perceived as safer, friendlier, and more budget-friendly. A recent poll by Travel Pulse showed that 62% of European travelers now list the U.S. as a low-priority destination, a number that was just 24% 2 years ago. Some analysts believe this moment is part of a larger decentralization of global tourism. For years, the U.S. was a default bucket list destination. Now, travelers are diversifying. That could mean the U.S. faces a longer road to recovery, not just in bookings but in reputation. Still, there are signs of hope. States like Colorado, North Carolina, and Oregon, less dependent on international travelers, are seeing domestic surges. And some airlines are betting on rebound demand by launching winter incentive routes with free upgrades and no-change fee guarantees. So is this collapse permanent? Not necessarily, but the U.S. will have to fight hard to win back the trust, interest, and excitement of the global traveler. And that won't be solved with cheap flights or Instagram ads alone. 3 million tourists, 15 airports. A tourism collapse the U.S. never saw coming. But behind the numbers lies a bigger question. Can the U.S. still be the world's favorite travel destination? This crisis is a wake-up call, not just for airports and airlines, but for how America shows up to the world. Will it adapt or fall behind? What do you think? Is this just turbulence or the start of a permanent shift? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if this opened your eyes. Subscribe for more deep travel breakdowns, and share this with someone who's planning their next big trip.